In a world where the sky shimmered with a faint purple haze and the ground pulsed with the rhythm of an ancient heartbeat, the Academy stood as a monolith of learning and survival. It was a place where species from across the galaxy converged, each student hand-picked for their potential to shape the universe or destroy it. The air was thick with tension, not just from the competitive spirit, but from the ever-present threat of the trials, a series of tests that determined who would graduate and who would be sent back to their homeworlds in shame. The class of 32 was a mix of beings: scaled draconians, telepathic Valurians, bioluminescent aquarids, and one human, a rarity in this cosmic melting pot. His name was Elias, and he was an anomaly, a creature from a backwater planet called Earth, known for its chaotic history and stubborn inhabitants. The instructor, a towering figure with obsidian skin and eyes that glowed like twin suns, had a voice that rumbled through the lecture hall. Today, the task was simple yet brutal. "Build a weapon," she said, her words slicing through the chatter of the students. The weapon had to be functional, capable of defending its creator in a simulated combat scenario by the end of the week. Resources were limited to what could be found in the Academy's scrapyard, a sprawling junk heap filled with discarded tech, broken machinery, and relics from forgotten wars. The other students buzzed with excitement, their minds already racing with plans for plasma blades, sonic disruptors, or neural stunners. Elias, however, sat at the back, his chair creaking under his weight, his expression unreadable. He was not like the others. Where they saw opportunity in the scrapyard's treasures, he saw chaos. His classmates had advantages, natural abilities like telekinesis, enhanced strength, or the ability to manipulate energy. Elias had none of these. His body was soft compared to the armored hides of the Draconians, his mind a closed book to the Valurians. What he did have was a knack for improvisation, a trait honed on a planet where survival often meant making do with less. He leaned back, the chair groaning louder, and an idea sparked. It was absurd, primitive, but it felt right. The scrapyard was a labyrinth of twisted metal and glowing fragments. The other students scattered their claws and tendrils, snatching up circuit boards and energy cores. Elias wandered, his boots crunching on shattered glass. He had no plan, not really, just a gut feeling that whatever he made had to be simple. Complexity was a trap, he thought, watching a Valurian struggle to calibrate a half-built laser cannon. He passed rusted hulls and sparking conduits, his eyes scanning for something solid, something real. Then he saw it, a broken chair, half buried under a pile of warped alloy. Its wooden leg jutted out like a challenge. He knelt, tugged it free, and turned it over in his hands. It was sturdy, about 3 feet long, with a splintered end that could be sharpened. He grinned. A spear, why not? Back in the workshop, the air was alive with the hum of tools and the chatter of students. A Draconian was forging a blade that crackled with electricity, while an aquarid wove a net of bioluminescent threads designed to paralyze. Elias sat at his bench, ignoring the curious glances. He took a piece of flint from his pocket, a keepsake from Earth, something he carried for no reason other than it felt like home, and began scraping the wood leg's end into a point. The wood was tough, resisting his efforts, but he was patient. Hours passed, and the spear took shape, its tip sharp enough to draw blood when he tested it against his thumb. He bound strips of fabric from his torn jacket around the base for grip, and when he was done, he held it up, feeling its weight. It was crude, laughably so next to the glowing gadgets of his peers, but it was his. The instructor appeared at his side, her shadow swallowing the light. She studied the spear, her glowing eyes narrowing. Elias braced himself for ridicule, but she only nodded, a gesture that could have meant approval or pity. She moved on without a word, leaving him to wonder if he had made a fatal mistake. The other students were less subtle. A Valorian, our mind brushing against his like a cold wind, smirked and projected an image of his spear snapping in combat. A Draconian laughed, his voice like grinding stones, and called it a toy. Elias shrugged, leaning the spear against his bench. Let him laugh. He had seen what humans could do with less.
The week passed in a blur of preparation. The combat scenario was held in the arena, a vast dome where the environment could shift at the instructor's whim. Jungle one moment, desert the next. The rules were simple. Each student would face a simulated opponent, a construct designed to exploit their weaknesses. Success meant disabling the construct. Failure meant expulsion. Elias watched his classmates go first, their weapons flashing in the artificial light. The Draconian's blade sliced through a construct's armor, sparks flying. The Aquarid's net ensnared another, its glow pulsing as the construct convulsed. Some failed, their weapons malfunctioning or their strategies flawed, and they were escorted out, their faces etched with shame. When Elias's turn came, the arena shifted into a dense forest, vines curling around his ankles. His opponent was a construct modeled after a Valurian assassin, fast, telepathic, and armed with dual energy blades. The crowd of students watched, their whispers a low hum. Elias gripped his spear, its weight grounding him. The construct lunged, its blades a blur, and he dodged, barely, feeling the heat of the energy singe his sleeve. He moved on instinct, years of scrapping on earth guiding his steps. The spear was an extension of his arm, light and quick. He thrust it at the construct's leg, aiming for a joint, and the wood struck true, jamming the mechanism. The construct stumbled, its blades swinging wildly, and he rolled away, his heart pounding. The fight was brutal, not because of the construct's strength, but because of its speed. It anticipated his moves, its telepathic core reading his intentions. Elias forced his mind to go blank, a trick he had learned as a kid dodging bullies. He focused on the spear, on the feel of the wood, the rhythm of his breath. When the construct lunged again, he sidestepped and drove the spear into its chest, where the power core glowed. The wood pierced the casing, and sparks erupted, the construct collapsing in a heap of twitching metal. The arena fell silent. Elias stood, panting, the spear still in hand, its tip scorched, but intact. The instructor's eyes glowed brighter as she approached. She did not speak, but her nod was unmistakable this time, approval. The other students were quiet, their earlier mockery replaced with something like respect, or at least confusion. Elias did not care. He had won, not because his weapon was advanced, but because it was enough. The spear, born from a broken chair and a stubborn human's will, had done what it needed to do. But the trials were not over. The instructor announced a second phase, one not mentioned before. The class would now compete against each other, their weapons pitted in a free-for-all. Alliances formed quickly, the Draconians banding together, the Valurians linking minds to coordinate. Elias was alone, as always. He tightened his grip on the spear, its simplicity a comfort in the chaos. The arena shifted again, this time into a rocky wasteland, jagged spires jutting from the ground. The battle began with a roar, energy weapons clashing, constructs forgotten as students turned on each other. Elias moved like a shadow, using the terrain to his advantage. He had no illusions about his chances. His spear could not match the firepower of a plasma blade or the range of a sonic disruptor. But he was human, and humans, he knew, were unpredictable. He targeted the weaker alliances first, striking from behind cover, his spear finding gaps in armor or disabling weapons with quick jabs. The Valurians, so reliant on their telepathy, struggled when he kept his mind quiet, his actions driven by instinct rather than thought. One by one, he outlasted them, not through strength, but through cunning.
The final standoff was against a Draconian named Kael, whose electric blade had carved through half the class. Kael towered over Elias, his scales gleaming, his weapon humming with lethal energy. The crowd was gone now, the other students either defeated or watching from the sidelines. Elias felt the weight of their stares, but he focused on Kael, on the way the Draconian moved, confident but heavy, his size a disadvantage in the uneven terrain. Elias darted between rocks, his spear a blur, aiming not for Kael's body, but for the blade's power source, a glowing crystal embedded in the hilt. It was a long shot, but he had nothing else. Kael swung, the blade sizzling through the air, and Elias ducked, feeling the heat on his back. He thrust the spear, missing the crystal, but catching Kael's wrist, the wood scraping against scales. Kael roared, more annoyed than hurt, and charged. Elias scrambled up a spire, his boots slipping on loose stone, and when Kael followed, he leaped, driving the spear downward. The tip struck the crystal, cracking it, and the blade's hum faltered, sparks flying. Kael swung again, but the weapon was weaker now, its energy draining. Elias pressed the advantage, staying low, striking at Kael's legs, his arms, anything to slow the giant down. It was not elegant, not heroic, but it was human, messy, desperate, and relentless. When Kael finally fell, his blade dead, the arena was silent again. Elias stood over him, spear in hand, his chest heaving. The instructor appeared, her presence commanding. She declared the trial over, Elias the last standing. The other students were sent to their quarters, some muttering, others staring at the human who had defied their expectations. The instructor approached Elias, her eyes unreadable. She asked why he chose the spear, why something so simple when the scrapyard offered so much more. Elias shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. It was what he knew, he said. It was enough. The academy changed after that. Elias was no longer the oddity, the weak link. His spear, now a legend among the students, was displayed in the hall, a reminder that power was not always in complexity. He continued his training, facing new trials, each one harder than the last. But he kept the spear, or made new ones when the old broke, each time from whatever was at hand, a table leg, a pipe, a branch. The other students began to experiment, some abandoning their high-tech gadgets for simpler tools, inspired by the human who had turned a chair leg into a victory. Years later, when Elias stood on the edge of a new world, spear in hand, facing threats no one could have imagined, he remembered that first trial, the chair leg, the laughter, the moment he decided to trust himself. It was not about the weapon, he realized, but what it represented, a refusal to be underestimated, a stubborn will to survive. And as he stepped into the unknown, the purple sky above him pulsing like a heartbeat, he knew he was ready. Because he was human, and humans, he thought, always found a way.